In the fall of 2012, Hurricane Sandy brought unprecedented damage to the east coast of the United States. With a diameter of 1,100 miles, Superstorm Sandy was the second largest Atlantic storm on record and affected the East Coast from Florida to Maine, causing blizzard conditions in West Virginia as well as other inland states. Sandy was responsible for at least 162 fatalities in the U.S. and caused tens of billions of dollars in damages. More than 8.5 million customers were left without power, and thousands of homes were destroyed. State and local officials were on the front lines providing support to survivors. At the national and regional level, FEMA took the lead for coordinating federal augmentation to the states. As the primary agency for coordinating public works and engineering support to FEMA, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers was among the many federal agencies that responded to assist the survivors of this devastating storm. Several days prior to landfall, FEMA took the lead for coordinating the federal effort to support the potentially impacted states. FEMA Administrator Craig Fugate activated the National Response Coordination Center, NRCC, in Washington and brought in representatives from the USACE and other agencies to coordinate disaster support at the national level. FEMA also deployed teams to each of the potentially impacted states to begin face-to-face coordination. The USACE deployed trained team leaders to assist with the pre-landfall planning efforts. At the request of FEMA, the USACE North Atlantic Division began mobilizing teams, tools, and other resources prior to Sandy's landfall and closed hurricane barriers in New England. The North Atlantic Division and its districts also began coordinating with local and state officials to provide assistance and expertise with evacuation decisions and to address potential storm surge impacts. On October 29, 2012, Hurricane Sandy made landfall in southern New Jersey and battered the densely populated New York and New Jersey region with heavy rains, strong winds, and record storm surges. Following landfall, the president declared major disasters for the impacted states and convened his cabinet at FEMA headquarters. The USACE Chief of Engineers participated in this meeting. The president set the tone for the federal government's response to the storm by directing departments and agencies to cut the red tape in order to expedite support to the disaster victims. The president emphasized 5 priorities, which included power, unwatering or removing water from flooded areas, ensuring survivors' basic needs were met, debris removal, and restoring transportation systems. The USACE received missions from FEMA to contribute to each of these priorities. Sandy had a major impact on the power grid. One of the highest priority FEMA missions assigned to the USACE was to provide temporary emergency power for critical facilities. FEMA mobilized generators. The USACE provided the teams required to assess facilities so that generators could be installed and operated at facilities such as hospitals, water treatment plants, and public housing high-rise buildings. The USACE soldiers from the 249th Engineering Battalion assessed 596 critical facilities, and the USACE teams installed a total of 211 generators in New Jersey and New York. The USACE temporary power mission supplied generators that had the capacity to provide 55 megawatts of power, or enough to support 55,000 families. One of the basic needs required following Hurricane Sandy was water for survivors. Water treatment facilities were impacted in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia. FEMA directed the Corps of Engineers to help meet these requirements for water. The USACE provided 9.2 million liters of water, which was enough for 2.5 million survivors. As a result of the numerous homes that were damaged or destroyed by Hurricane Sandy, a key priority for FEMA was providing shelter and housing for survivors. The USACE assisted FEMA in this effort. One solution was providing temporary power to high-rise public housing buildings that allowed survivors to shelter in place until repairs could be made to restore power. In New Jersey, FEMA requested USACE assistance in retrofitting existing housing units located at the former Fort Monmouth Army Base. FEMA placed 115 displaced families in these restored facilities. The record storm surge from Hurricane Sandy had devastating impacts in New York and New Jersey as the waters from the storm rushed into tunnels, subway systems, wastewater treatment plants, and other critical infrastructure. FEMA assigned the USACE with the mission to lead federal efforts to assist state and local authorities with pumping out these flooded areas. Local officials asked for USACE to assist with the unwatering of 14 tunnels and other critical facilities that included the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel, which is the longest continuous underwater vehicular tunnel in North America. The Corps deployed a team of experts and also brought in partners from the Navy Supervisor of Salvage, U.S. Coast Guard, and the Defense Logistics Agency to execute this mission. Using teams that manned over 150 pumps, these tunnels were successfully unwatered within 11 days of the storm's landfall. The USACE pumped out 474 million gallons of water, which is enough to fill 719 Olympic-sized pools. An important part of the recovery process is expediting the removal and disposal of the millions of cubic yards of debris generated by Hurricane Sandy. State and local officials have the lead for this work, but in some areas federal assistance was required. FEMA requested the USACE to assist with the debris management mission. The USACE deployed teams to assist in the removal of more than 3.5 million cubic yards of storm-related debris in New York and managed the removal of construction, sand, and vegetative debris. Given the limited areas for disposal, the debris was hauled by trucks and barges to upstate New York, as well as other areas for permanent disposal. The surge and waves from Hurricane Sandy brought devastation to many coastal communities after washing away protective dunes, destroying and inundating homes, and creating breaches that impacted roads. In addition, efforts to provide survivor assistance were impacted. Immediately following the storm, FEMA tasked the Corps to close breaches in Cupsog County Park, Smith Point, and Mantoloking. As part of the long-term recovery, Congress has provided supplemental funding to the Corps for the purpose of restoring and improving projects that will provide protection to coastal communities in the future. Hurricane Sandy's effects were devastating in the northeastern United States. Local, state, and federal responders worked together to meet the needs of the survivors as well as to address the infrastructure damage brought about by the storm. FEMA issued over 60 mission assignments to the USACE to mobilize resources that provided life-saving and life-sustaining support. The North Atlantic Division of the Corps of Engineers received support from over 1,000 personnel from all 8 divisions throughout the country to provide this assistance. The Corps of Engineers is proud to have been a part of the team that provided response and recovery support to FEMA and the states. The Corps is also committed to the long-term recovery as we work with the communities to build the capabilities and provide engineering solutions that reduce the impacts of future disasters.